Good day everyone, so with the Genshin Impact 5.6 livestream being over, there have been a lot of mixed reactions. Some people calling it a 10 out of 10, best update patch ever, and when you ask them they're just going to be like, yeah, the new events is so cool, the minigames not so much, but that other character looks so cool, and it's just like, can you give me a bit more? I mean, just a bit better justification. In any case, and then you get the opposite side of people that are telling you, hey, I'm not that I'm a Kurobot or anything, but compared to what Withering Waves has, Genshin looks awfully primitive and it's just the best they can do. And then once again, these are people that don't really play the game, that don't really have any stakes in it, so it's very easy to criticize without giving deep, meaningful criticisms. So again, from my perspective as the antisocial odd one out here, I think both sides are wrong, and I even think Hoyo is wrong, because there is a lot to be desired. So let's get into today's video. The Genshin Impact 5.6 livestream was a mess. From my perspective, the presentation of the main event and the story was just very incoherent and all over. We start off in Mondstadt, then we go to Fontaine, now there's a Natlan character being introduced, and it just felt like it's cool. And then I just get a Hexen Circle thrown randomly in because Mondstadt and Hexen Circle is always there. It's a plotline that only develops once a year, which is incredibly crazy. And from that perspective, it just feels very jarring. It feels like you've got a world that is starting to get too big, and unfortunately, it feels like unless you're on the Hoyo writing team, you're now expected after a year and a half to suddenly care about Albedo, care about the Hexen Circle, care about this thread or this plotline in Genshin. Oh, and then by the way, here's Aoife and Auroron there, here in Fontaine, and then Escoffier is gonna create some dishes. It's like, okay guys, just whoa, stop. The best thing you can do for this massive Mondstadt chapter, if it were me, if I were on the development team, would be to take the 5.4 festival that we had and have some of the Inazuma characters, let's say Kokomi, Yae Miko, interacting, have extra dialogue and cutscenes where they are busy cooperating with Mondstadt to try and eradicate stuff, and then in the next chapter or the next version have someone, let's say from Sumeru, interact with it, or at the end of the 5.3 Archon quest have some of the Natlan characters go out there and meet Fontaine characters, etc. Do some inter-nation building. Let's start seeing the threads of a bigger plot being hinted at through prior interactions, because that's going to make it feel really cool. What I'm instead seeing is, oh, now it's this Mondstadt region that we kind of forgot because we've got all these other regions. Oh yeah, now here's some big event with Albedo and little Diluc and Kaya standing together in front of the Mondstadt gate, fighting off the big bad monsters. I mean, that is so lame. I'm serious, that is so freaking lame. You know what would be a lot cooler? Having someone, let's say, like Kokomi, be a tactician involved in defending Mondstadt, and then you could have a really cool game mode where you've got all these little objectives, and the idea is that the walls of Mondstadt should not be breached. But instead, what do we have? We've got a limited time domain map where you've got a bunch of enemies spawning, you're probably going to need to kill them, and then after a while the story is going to progress. I need more from Genshin Impact, and that's the thing, you've got a wide cast of characters, so don't arbitrarily throw them together just because Auroron and Aoife is now the hottest latest thing, and we now want to do something again on Fontaine because we haven't done anything on Fontaine, and so they need to be introduced into a story. It's a mess. The way I'm talking about it, even I want you to understand it's a mess. Instead, what Genshin should be doing is every week, every 2 weeks, have that there be correspondence between characters in different nations. Do a bit of nation building during all of these dead filler patches so that eventually it can all come together and give you a bit of a grand narrative, because I still get the opinion that each of the nations are treated as one nation on their own rather than this being Teyvat. We finally have now like gone like from the nation of Pyro, where they had to defend their Pyro, whatever they had their problems. So now that every single nation apart from Shneshnaya have solved their issues, they've resolved the crisis with the Fatui, it would be so good to get a united front for a game that's always been, hey, the power of friendship standing here against the Raiden Shogun, and the power of friendship and the Akasha Terminal standing against the Scaramouche boss, and, you know, through the power of friendship, Mavuika and the Six Tribes and the Traveler slay the Abyss Dragon. If that is the narrative trope that you want to keep, build it up, build up the power of friendship, make the payoff worth it. And apart from just the nation building and the power of friendship, which could really give you a very satisfying conclusion towards the end of Genshin's story, I think Genshin should also have that, by virtue of nations interacting, that older nations start changing. Wouldn't that be cool to kind of see some updates towards regions that are literally 3, 4, 5 years old? Because currently what happens is that Genshin tries to keep characters like region specific, and that means that when you have all of the shiny fancy new Natlan characters that have this Night Soul Bliss state, blessing state, and they look so fancy with all of these special effects, when you release someone like Escoffier, she looks kind of meh. She looks kind of underwhelming. And the problem with why that is because you've introduced a shiny toy, all of these fancy Natlan things, and now you're going back to the old Genshin Impact formula. And that just, again, jars in the mind of players. So what is the antidote to this? Well, start doing some nation building, start introducing more regional abilities, some extra special effects. There's got to be a way you can slowly lift up the quality of your overall game. So that is my perspective on it. So for all being from me criticizing Genshin Impact, I think that there is a lot of cool things that they can do to modernize the gacha, and they've got the lore, they've got everything to do it. It just requires not the developers to be like work hard and not be lazy. No. It requires the people at the top that are directing and marketing and deciding the future of this project to just have a bit of ambition. You have developers that can deliver on it. It's not the Hoyo devs being lazy, it's the corporate execs that are trying to optimize for how little they can do and how much they can get out for the amount of effort spent, so that they can create a new game and capture some more market share, because that's going to look better and get more money in. That is the state of things. In my personal opinion, it's not a case of Wuthering Waves versus Genshin. Then you're literally also talking about Unity versus Unreal 5. And yes, there are also problems with the Unreal 5 engine, which makes me... We'll talk about that in another video. But effectively, it's not just one gacha versus another, because these things aren't always translatable. In fact, I think by making the conversation, hey, you've got this, but this other game's got this, we often lose a practical way to make the base game better in a meaningful way. For instance, a lot of people would be like, in Genshin we need flying mechanics and all of this, and I call bullshit on it. I think what you need are a number of traversal mechanics that unlock after a certain portion of the game has been unlocked. So for instance, drive around with a tank-like thing in the Sumru Desert. Give us the ability to fly freely once you've completed the game at a 60% completion rate. Genshin Impact doesn't have the same aesthetics and styles as the 2.0 and whatever regions in WoWA, where it actually does look beautiful. By design, you're supposed to fly around it. As someone that has flown around Genshin Impact, you're not gonna gain that much just by being able to fly. What you're gonna gain a lot from is being able to interact with the environment in new, engaging and fresh ways. Do you understand? From my perspective, it's not just about having the gimmick that the other game has, but saying what is going to make meaningful gameplay, a meaningful gameplay experience in my current game. And how can I relay these ideas in a way that's not going to be that toxic, in a way that we can really start trying to coax the people that look at the feedback to say, these are actually good ideas, rather than trying to force you into a curated gaming experience that you just eventually get burnt out on. That is my say on all of this. Regardless, let's just recap this video because it might also be a bit of a messy video for people not paying attention. But effectively, Genshin Impact's 5.6 livestream was very, very messy. They presented a lot of things, and I think that the Genshin lore and world building should be at a point where we get more cohesiveness so that things can follow more logically and maybe more easier for players. And secondly, people shooting Genshin Impact down for outdated graphics and for not having certain gameplay mechanics, those are valid criticisms, but they're not constructive criticisms. And I think what I've presented today, at least, is a starting point to a conversation on how we can make Genshin a really good game. A game that once you've had your fill, you go on and you play something else, because there's nothing wrong in not being loyal, and there's nothing wrong when you are still loyal to a specific game. It's your time. Use it however you think best. Right, way too much talking. Okay, that's it from my side. Thanks for watching.